Hadrian's Wall sits at the literal edge of the Roman Empire, cold, windswept, about as far from civilization as a legionary could be posted. And when archaeologists excavated the forts along it, they found something that shouldn't have been a priority for a frontier military base under constant threat. A fully functioning bathhouse, with hypocaust underfloor heating, built almost as carefully as the defensive walls themselves. This wasn't a one-off luxury for officers. Bathhouses were standard kit at Roman forts across the empire, from Britain to North Africa. And the recovery ritual that happened inside them, a structured sequence of heat, cold, oil, and massage, turns out to map almost exactly onto a recovery protocol elite athletes are paying real money for today. The Romans just called it Tuesday. Here's the sequence a soldier actually went through. After training, marching, or fighting, he'd head to the apodyterium to undress, then often into the palestra, an exercise yard, before the real recovery process began. From there, into the caldarium, a hot, steam-filled room heated from below by a wood-fired hypocaust system, where the body sweated heavily and blood vessels opened up. Then a scrape down with a curved metal tool called a strigil to remove oil, sweat, and grime, often combined with a hands-on massage. Then into the cooler tepidarium to ease the transition. And finally, the frigidarium, a plunge into genuinely cold water, the part of the routine physicians like Galen specifically recommended as the finishing step. Heat, then cold. Vasodilation, then vasoconstriction. Over and over as standard procedure in a building that frontier soldiers had at forts like Chester's and Caerleon, sometimes built before the surrounding settlement even had proper housing. That's not an indulgence. That's infrastructure the Roman military considered essential enough to build at the edge of the known world. Before getting to the heat-cold cycle, there's the oil and strigil step, and it's doing more than just cleaning. Roman bathers, soldiers very much included, coated themselves in olive oil before or during the bathing process, then scraped it off along with sweat and dead skin using the strigil, frequently finished off with a proper massage. Strip away the cultural packaging, and that's a combination of skin exfoliation and manual soft tissue work, mechanically not far from what a sports massage therapist does today. Modern research on massage after intense exercise consistently shows reductions in perceived muscle soreness and improvements in short-term blood flow to fatigued tissue, alongside a real psychological effect. Athletes who get a structured, hands-on recovery ritual report feeling recovered faster, even when the objective muscle damage markers move only modestly. The Romans had no concept of creatine kinase levels. They just knew a man felt and moved better after the scrape down than before it. Now to the part that should actually surprise you. The hot then cold sequence isn't just old world theater. It's functionally identical to what modern sports science calls contrast water therapy, and it's been studied extensively. A systematic review and meta-analysis, pulling more than a dozen controlled trials, found that contrast water therapy produced significantly better improvements in muscle soreness than passive rest, measurable at multiple points from under 6 hours all the way out to 4 days post-exercise. The same review found it also reduced strength loss following intense exercise compared with simply resting. More recent research has even started narrowing down the exact dosage. Cold water immersion in the moderate range, roughly 11 to 15 degrees Celsius, appears to ease soreness and inflammation effectively without the diminishing returns and discomfort that come with genuinely freezing water. Rome, obviously, never ran a randomized controlled trial to find that sweet spot, but a frigidarium fed by natural spring or well water would have landed in a broadly similar temperature band, almost by geographic accident. The proposed mechanism is almost exactly what's happening physically in a Roman caldarium to frigidarium transition. Heat opens blood vessels, cold closes them down, and the repeated cycling acts like a pump, helping flush metabolic waste products out of fatigued tissue while modulating inflammation and pain signaling. Modern recovery clinics now sell this exact alternating temperature protocol as a premium service. Roman forts had it built into the architecture. Here's where this series earns its keep, because science isn't a blanket yes. Researchers have also found that cold water immersion, used immediately and repeatedly after resistance training specifically aimed at building muscle, can blunt the long-term strength and hypertrophy gains athletes are chasing. The cold appears to interfere with some of the cellular signaling that drives muscle adaptation when it's used as a daily habit after every single training session, which makes the Roman context oddly precise. Soldiers weren't doing this after every light drill. The full ritual was a recovery protocol for genuinely hard output: battle, route marches, heavy combat training. Modern sports scientists now give athletes almost the same advice. Save aggressive cold exposure for recovery from real competition or peak exertion, not as a routine bolted onto every single strength session. The Romans didn't have cellular biology. They had 2,000 years of soldiers telling commanders what actually helped them recover, and that practical filtering landed in roughly the right place anyway. Recovery wasn't just what happened in the bathhouse. Roman soldiers also drank pasca on the march and after exertion, a daily ration of water mixed with vinegar made from wine that had soured, sometimes cut with herbs, honey, or a pinch of salt. Historians studying Roman military logistics have called it the era's version of a sports drink, and the comparison holds up better than you'd expect. The salt replaced sodium lost through sweat. The vinegar's acidity helped neutralize bacteria in water supplies that were often genuinely unsafe to drink straight, while also, according to some modern nutrition research, increasing satiety after carbohydrate-heavy meals, useful for an army trying to stretch limited rations across a long march. Some historians even credit pasca's herb additions like coriander with delivering enough trace vitamin C to help spare Roman legions from the scurvy that plagued less well-supplied medieval armies centuries later. None of that was measured in a lab. It was measured in which units stayed marching and which didn't. One more piece modern recovery science is only recently taking seriously. The social environment around the ritual mattered. Roman bathhouses weren't silent clinical recovery suites. Soldiers gambled, played board games, chatted. And in at least one excavated frontier bathhouse, archaeologists even found an altar to Fortuna, the goddess of luck, tucked into a corner room. Recovery wasn't an isolated, solitary act. It was communal downtime built directly into the unit's daily rhythm. Modern sports psychology increasingly treats this as a real variable, not a soft afterthought. Group recovery environments are linked to lower perceived stress and better buy-in to recovery protocols than the same physical intervention done alone. A legion that bathed together, joked together, and decompressed together between bouts of brutal physical output was running a version of team cohesion training that modern locker rooms are still trying to formalize. So why did this disappear for over 1,000 years? Mostly because the infrastructure was the hard part. Hypo-cost eating, aqueduct-fed water systems, and the engineering know-how to run a multi-room thermal bathhouse collapsed along with the empire that built and maintained it. Cultural attitudes toward communal nudity and bathing also shifted significantly in the centuries afterward, and what was once standard military infrastructure became, in much of post-Roman Europe, an oddity from a vanished civilization. It took modern plumbing, modern sports science, and a renewed obsession with marginal performance gains to rebuild, piece by piece, almost exactly what a Roman fort bathhouse was already doing as a matter of routine. So next time you see an athlete climb into a cold plunge tub after a hot sauna and call it biohacking, you can tell them a legionary on Hadrian's Wall was doing the same sequence, in the same order, for the same physiological reason, with a strigil instead of a loofah and a goddess of luck watching from the corner. If you want more ancient recovery and training methods checked against the actual research instead of wellness influencer guesswork, subscribe. Because it turns out the Romans were quietly running a sports science lab they never bothered to name.